Squiz Kids acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands on which we podcast, the Turrbal and Gadigal people.
Squiz Kids!
It's your daily news fix. Fun, free, fresh.
Hello and welcome to Squiz Kids Today, your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you. I'm Amanda Bauer. It's Tuesday, March 7. In Squiz Kids Today, help for the high seas, Vanuatu's triple whammy, restoring Notre Dame's acoustics, and an 8-year-old's poochie payday. That's what's making news, kid style.
The lowdown.
After negotiations that lasted longer than some of you have been alive, a majority of the world's nations have come to an historic agreement on protecting our oceans. For more than 15 years, the United Nations has led talks on protecting what's called the high seas, which sounds like something from a pirate movie, but actually is the official term for waters that aren't within 370 kilometres of any country's coast, and so they don't belong to anyone. That makes up about 2/3 of the world's waters and almost half our entire planet. The main focus of the High Seas Treaty is to protect marine biodiversity, meaning the huge variety of plants and animals that live in our oceans. Now, nearly 10% of marine species, particularly sharks, whales, and reef corals, are currently at risk of extinction because of overfishing, pollution, and climate change. Under the new agreement, 30% of the high seas would be protected by 2030, mostly by setting up conservation zones. It's been called a monumental win for ocean protection, although so far what's been agreed on is the wording of the treaty. It still needs to be voted on at the next meeting of the UN. Then the real work can begin.
Spin the globe.
Each day we give the world globe a spin and find a news story from wherever it stops. And today we've landed in Vanuatu, where 3 nightmarish days of natural disasters have caused widespread damage. The Pacific Island nation, which has a population of about 300,000, is ranked by the United Nations as the country most prone to natural disasters. But the triple whammy of Cyclone Judy last Thursday, followed by a magnitude 6.5 earthquake on Friday, then Cyclone Kevin on Friday and Saturday, well, locals say that is unprecedented. Unprecedented means it's something that's never happened before. Heavy rains, gale force winds and the shaking ground have damaged buildings, communications and power lines, and the Vanuatu government has declared a state of emergency. Yesterday, more than 600 Australian Defence Force personnel boarded HMAS Canberra and headed out to help with the relief efforts, because that's what friends do.
Weird science.
What do you think medieval singers, a sewer inspection robot and a piece of carpet have in common? They are all being used by scientists to restore the acoustics of Paris's Notre Dame Cathedral. The acoustics of a place determine how we hear the things that happen in it. A piece of music sounds very different if it's played in your bathroom or your classroom or a huge cathedral. And Notre Dame, which first opened in 1363, has always been famous for its stunning acoustics. You'd better believe I've put some links in your episode notes. You might remember that in 2019, a huge fire engulfed the iconic French cathedral. Before it was even safe to walk back inside, audio experts sent in a microphone attached to a sewer inspection robot and were able to confirm that 20% of the cathedral's acoustics had been lost. As renovations started, they needed to make sure that the sound would be properly restored too. So they used recordings to build computer models of how the cathedral sounded in 1987 and then in 2015 when a strip of carpet installed to soften the noise of people's footsteps affected the acoustics. And the medieval singers? Well, the experts recorded them in an echo-proof room and are using that recording to test the renovation plans. There's a link in your episode notes to an interactive piece from the New York Times. You can plug in headphones and experience what it's like to stand in different parts of the cathedral and listen to medieval music. You can thank me later.
Squiz Kids salutes.
Over this past weekend, the Jerilderie Working Dog Auction was held. For those of you not familiar with farm life, a working dog is one that rounds up sheep or other animals. And an auction is where farmers go to buy working dogs that have been raised and trained by other people. And now, one such farmer has paid $5,500 to an 8-year-old kid for the first dog he ever trained. Tommy Lee's parents both raise working dogs, and the young Victorian said he thought he'd give it a crack with a pup named Echo. Obviously, he did a fabulous job. And in case you're a big softie like me, the good news is that Echo's new owner only lives 90 minutes away from Tommy, so he'll still be able to see him. As for what to do with $5,500, Tommy wants to fix up the family's bright green 1-ton ute. Tommy, Squiz Kids salutes you.
Time for the quiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. What is the name for the open waters that are far from any country's coastline? That's right, the high seas. Question number 2. Vanuatu has been slammed by 2 different types of natural disaster. What were they? That's right, 1 earthquake and 2 cyclones. And question number 3. Which French cathedral is having its acoustics restored? That's right, Notre Dame.
Shout outs.
It's March 7, and because tomorrow is International Women's Day, I thought I'd highlight the birthday today of a pioneering and outstanding professional race car driver. Janet Guthrie turns 85 today, but back when she was 17, the American got her pilot's license. Soon after, she was one of the first 4 women in history to qualify for NASA's astronaut training, and then when she was 25, she started racing cars. She was the first woman to ever compete in an Indy 500 and the first woman to compete in a NASCAR event. I'll put a link in your episode notes to video of a post-race interview from 1978. The journalist tells Janet that some people say a woman could never drive 500 miles. She answers that she was driving with one hand. Janet Guthrie, a very happy birthday to you. It's also a special day for these Squiz Kids celebrating a birthday today. Brooke from Yass, Hannah from Tarrington, Indiana Rose from Tamworth, Ryan from Wakerley, Esme from Richmond, Grace from Kingsgrove, Luke from Princes Hill, Artie from Rose Park, and twins Meg and Neve from Geelong West. And belated shout-outs go to Isla from Canberra, Jamie from Sydney, and Casey from Bangkok, Thailand. Today's classroom shout-outs go to Class 6Y and Mrs. LeRae at Lakes Grammar School in Warnervale, Class 6 Green and Miss Ross at St Brendan's Catholic Primary School in Lake Munmora, Class 2-5C with Ms Kavanagh and Mrs Kennedy at Regentville Public School, Class 3-4C and Miss Crittenden at Ellamore Vale Public School, and lastly to the students in Harmony Room with Miss Gianna at the KU John Carroll Preschool in Surrey Hills. Don't forget, if you've got a birthday coming up and you want a shout out, or if you want a classroom shout out, drop us a line at squizkids@thesquiz.com.au or fill out the form on our website. Don't forget, if you live in a place that you think I might mispronounce, or if your name needs a little help in me being able to read it, go ahead and write down the way that you want me to say it. That's all we have time for. Thanks for listening to Squiz Kids today. We'll be back again tomorrow. In the meantime, get out there and have a most excellent day. Over and out.